Welcome to the Madison Miller Podcast. Today is Friday, December 18th, 2020. Today I'm going to recap yesterday's college basketball games and NBA preseason games, look ahead to tonight and the weekend's games. Thursday night football, what a game last night. We will recap that and look ahead to the weekend's games in the NFL. We'll preview and predict all the big games in college football this weekend as well. NBA small forward rankings, the latest with the NHL, and my Fab 5 and best bet of the day. Alrighty then. Let's start off with college basketball. We'll go over the results from last night, as I mentioned, and then look ahead to tonight and the weekend. Small slate last night, not busy at all. The weekend's obviously loaded. We'll get to all of it. Southern Illinois over North Dakota, 85-64. Bryant over Wagner, 81-75. Sacred Heart over Long Island, 87-72. New Mexico over LaTourneau, 90-58. Coastal Carolina over Delaware State, 99-73. Drexel over St. Joe's, 81-77. Appalachian State over Greensboro, 87-47. Valparaiso over Purdue Northwest, 89-71. Number 5, Kansas Tech over number 14, Texas Tech, 58-57. Number 9, Creighton over St. John's, 94-76. Texas Arlington over Dallas Christian, 109-48. Nebraska over Duane, 110-64. East Tennessee State over Columbia International, 96-54. Eastern Kentucky over CU Harrodsburg, 118-54. North Alabama over Crowley's Ridge, 99-51. North Texas over Houston Baptist, 85-55. Bradley over Jackson State, 83-60. St. Louis over NC State, 80-69. Oregon over San Francisco, 74-64. Seattle over College of Idaho, 78-54. Loyola Marymount over UC Irvine, 51-48. Wyoming over Omaha, 82-78. Idaho State over Sagu AIC, 89-54. Southern Utah over Dixie State, 85-78. And Seton Hall over Marquette, 70-63. All right. Today's slate. So Incarnate Word and Arizona State and Manhattan and Quinnipiac are either canceled or postponed. 12 o'clock, you have VMI against Gardner-Webb. My line for this game is Gardner-Webb by 2. And FanDuel has it at... Let's see if FanDuel has this at. Gardner-Webb by 4.5. So 2.5 point edge on VMI. So I'm going to take VMI plus 4.5 at Slate Juice at minus 112. It's 2 o'clock, Central Michigan, Western Michigan. My line for this is Central by 4 and Western's favored by 1.5. I'm taking Central plus the 1.5 at a very, very juiced minus 128. They're minus 108 to win the game straight up. So this game is essentially a pick'em right now because both sides are minus 108. So I'm taking Central Michigan in what is somewhat of a pick'em against Western Michigan. Fairfield against Niagara is at 4 o'clock. We'll get to that game in a second. Carver, Georgia State, we could skip. Columbia International and Appalachian State, we could skip. That's a 4 o'clock game. And at 3 o'clock, NCAT in Greensboro. So, at 4 o'clock, you have Fairfield and Niagara. My projection for this is Niagara by 6.5. Meanwhile, it is Niagara by 4.5. I'm going to lay the 4.5 with Niagara. North Dakota and Southern Illinois. My line for this game is Southern Illinois by 9.5. And it's Southern Illinois by 8.5. So, go to the total, 136.5. This is a tough one in terms of projecting a total. I'm going to go over 136.5 at a valuable minus 108. Next up is UNC Wilmington and Norfolk State. My projection for this is Norfolk by 12.5. And the line is Norfolk by 1.5. I'm going to lay the 1.5 with Norfolk State against UNC Wilmington. 5 o'clock, CBS Sports Network, BYU against number 18, San Diego State. My line for this game is BYU by 4. And It is San Diego State by 7.5. I'm taking BYU plus a 7.5 at minus 112, and I'm taking them to win straight up at plus 280. So give me BYU plus a 7.5 at minus 112 and plus 280 straight up. Hampton and Howard. My projection here is Howard by 18. Howard's only favored by 1.5. I'm going to lay the 1.5 with Howard against Hampton at a juiced minus 115. Next up is St. Peter's against Monmouth. Monmouth has only played one game all season. There's no line out yet for this game, even though Monmouth and St. Peter's are both in New Jersey. My projection here is Monmouth by 1.5, so I'm going to go on the limb and say that Monmouth wins the game. All right, next up you have Canisius and Siena is postponed. Siena has not played all year. 6 o'clock, Bowling Green and Robert Morris. My projection for this game is Bowling Green by 17. And the line is... I don't see a line here for this game. And ESPN doesn't have one either. So I'm going to say Bowling Green just wins the game straight up. Next up is Drake in South Dakota. My projection is Drake 10. And it's Drake 6.5. So I'm going to lay the 6.5 with Drake at a valuable minus 106. We can skip Dickinson State, Montana, and Alice Lloyd College in Coastal Carolina. South Carolina State and Presbyterian. I project this as a pick'em. And Presbyterian is an 8.5 point favorite. So I'm going to take plus 8.5 at a ridiculous minus 102. And plus 370 straight up's not bad either. I don't think they're actually going to win the game straight up per se, but I wouldn't be dumbfounded if they did. So I would take a shot at the money line, although I'm not calling for the upset necessarily. SIU and Morehead State. So a little OVC action. My projection is Morehead by 8.5. Meanwhile, it's Morehead by 5.5, and I'm going to lay the 5.5 at Morehead State against SIU Edwardsville at a juiced minus 118. Richmond against Loyola Chicago. My projection for this is Richmond by 5, and it's Richmond by 2.5. I'm going to lay the 2.5 with Richmond at a juice minus 115. Thomas College Stetson canceled 7 o'clock. Tennessee Tech at number 10, Tennessee. My projection for this is Tennessee by 30. And Tennessee is laying 28.5, so that's within 1.5. So I have to go to the total 127.5. This is a tough one. That number seems very low, especially for a team like Tennessee. So I'm going to take the over 127.5 at a valuable minus 105. Emporia State and Wichita State. Iona and Rider. My projected line for this is Iona by 9.5. And there's no lineup yet for this game, so I'm going to say Iona gets it done on the road. Davidson and Rhode Island. My projection is Davidson by 6.5. Meanwhile, the line is Rhode Island by 4.5. I like Davidson plus 4.5 at minus 105, and I like them to win the game straight up at plus 184. Northwestern State against Tulsa. My projection is Tulsa 8.5, and it's 14.5. I'm going to take Northwestern State plus the 14.5 at minus 108. Next up, you have a couple games we can skip. Weber International in Florida Gulf Coast and Georgia Southwestern in Jacksonville State. Western Carolina against Charleston. My projection is Western Carolina by 3, and it's Charleston by 2.5. I'm taking Western Carolina plus a 2.5 at minus 106, and for them to win straight up at plus 130. I like a lot of moneyline underdogs today in college basketball. Belmont and Tennessee State. My projection for this is Belmont 16, and it's Belmont 7.5, so I'm going to lay the 7.5 at Belmont against Tennessee State at minus 112. Chicago State and Northern Illinois. My projection for this game is Northern Illinois by 10. And It's Northern Illinois by 17.5, so I'm going to take Chicago State plus the 17.5 against Northern Illinois, 7-point differential, or 7.5-point differential, so I'm going to do it. Next up is Florida A&M and Georgia Tech. My projection for this game is Tech by 19, and the line is Tech by 19.5. Total 138.5. I'm going to take the under 138.5 at minus 112. I know MEAC's goals are normally overs. So, give me under 138.5 at minus 112. I think Tech can play a little defense. Florida A&M's not a good offensive team. We can skip the next one, which is Virginia Wise needs Tennessee State, which got postponed. Champion Christian was the one that we could skip over. Louisiana VCU and McNeese Austin P canceled. Virginia Wise needs Tennessee State postponed. We could skip Champion Christian Little Rock. That's a 7:30 game as well. As the next one I'm going to do, Tennessee Martin, Southeast Missouri State. So you have an OVC matchup there. My projection is Tennessee Martin by 4. And it's Tennessee Martin plus 6.5. So Southeast Missouri State is getting the points. I'm taking Tennessee Martin plus 6.5, and I'm taking them to win straight up at plus 250. So give me Tennessee Martin plus 6.5 at minus 112 and plus 245 on the money line. LSU Shreveport and Stephen F. Austin canceled. Prairie View at number 16 Missouri canceled. Freed Hardeman Arkansas State canceled. 8 o'clock ESPN U. Iowa State at number 8 West Virginia. My line for this game is West Virginia by 15.5. Meanwhile, West Virginia... Surprised there's no lineup yet for this game. This is a pretty big game. Oh, no, here it is. It's a 9 o'clock game. I thought it was an 8 o'clock game. That's a misread by my... I stand corrected. It's a 9 o'clock game. West Virginia is favored by 15.5. So, the market and I are in agreement here. 146.5 is the total. West Virginia has been solid offensively this year, but their defense is their calling card. This is a hard one. I'm going to take the over. I don't feel great about it. 146.5 at a very juiced. Actually, no, I'm going to take the under. My bad. At minus 106. I'm going to go with the valuables under here. The case is that West Virginia turns back into press Virginia a little bit, plays a little better defensively, and their offense will do enough for them to win. So under 146.5 I like, and minus 106 for Iowa State against West Virginia. But instead of Southern Utah, we can skip Idaho, Utah. My projection for this game is Utah 40. Utah's giving 22.5, so I'm going to lay the 22.5 with Utah against Idaho. Next up is Santa Clara and San Jose State. My projection for this game is Santa Clara by 16. And Santa Clara is giving 7.5, so I'm going to lay the 7.5 with Santa Clara against San Jose State at a valuable minus 105. Montana State against Washington State. My projection is Cougars by 11, and it's Cougars by 6.5, so I'm going to lay the 6.5 at Washington State against Montana State at a juiced minus 114. Next up, you got Eastern Washington and Northern Arizona. My projection for this game is Eastern Washington 24, and Eastern Washington is laying 10.5, so I'm going to lay the 10.5 with Eastern Washington at a juiced minus 118. 10 o'clock, Air Force, Nevada. My line's Nevada 7.5, and it's Nevada 12.5, so I'm going to take the 12.5 for the Air Force in that one. And last but not least, Weber State and Portland State. My projection's Weber by 4, and the line is Portland by 1.5. So I'm going to take Weber State plus the 1.5 at minus 105, and I'm taking them to win straight up at plus 110. So there you have it for tonight's college basketball picks. All right, rest of the weekend, Saturday, which should be a very busy slate. And there's some TBDs in here, too, in terms of times. Manhattan, Quinnipiac postponed. Vermont, UMass Lowell postponed. Cal State, Northridge, Cal, TBD. Butler, Indiana at 11:30 on Fox Sports 1. That's the crossover classic. That's going to be a good game. If I had to project the line for this one, I would make this game Indiana by a half. So it's a very close projection with this. So I'm going to say that Indiana wins the Crossover Classic 2020 edition. 12 o'clock, number 3 Iowa against number 1 Gonzaga. What a game. Ooh, baby. So Gonzaga makes its return from quarantine. And Iowa sitting there very pretty at number 3 in the country. I would make this game Gonzaga 1, so I'm going to pick Gonzaga to win, but Iowa's probably going to cover if the line is bigger than 3. Number 23, Louisville against number 12, Wisconsin, ACC Big Ten Challenge. This is going to be a great game as well between these two teams. I would make this Wisconsin 4.5, so I'm going to take Wisconsin here. West Virginia Tech, Morgan State, we could skip. North Texas, LSU, that's going to be an interesting game. I'd say LSU wins that one. Troy, Auburn at 12 o'clock on the SEC Network. Auburn should win that game. Number 24, Clemson, South Carolina postponed. FAU, Florida postponed, but that's not due to COVID. That's because of the Keontae Johnson situation, and we have not touched on that on the podcast, but it's good to see that Johnson is communicating with his teammates and doing very well. That was very, very scary what happened with that player. 12:30 to Citadel Longwood, 1 o'clock Kansas Christian and UMKC. UNC Greensboro, Alon, Central Connecticut State, Fordham. James Madison, East Carolina, Ball State, Indiana State. Virginia Wise Liberty postponed. 2 o'clock CBS, number 22, North Carolina against Kentucky. I want to say Carolina wins that game because Kentucky's just been flat out terrible this year. Oh, for them. Malone, Akron, Western Kentucky, Alabama on ESPNU. I would not be shocked if Western Kentucky won that game outright. Marist, Manhattan, Hofstra, St. Bonaventure, Drexel, Fairleigh Dickinson, Grambling, Tulane, Duquesne, Richmond, High Point, William & Mary, Georgia Southwest, Mercer, Milwaukee, Green Bay, Youngstown State, Northern Kentucky, Wright State, Detroit, Mercy, Valparaiso, Toledo, Stony Brook, Binghamton, Maine, Hartford, Louisiana Tech, hosting Lamar. Gardner Webb, number 21, Duke, canceled. Northern Iowa, Marshall, canceled. Morgan State, Towson, postponed. 2:30 ESPN2, Purdue, Notre Dame in the Crossroads Classic. That's going to be an interesting game. I'm going to say that Purdue gets it down on the road. Although, you could argue Notre Dame bounce back spot here. Ole Miss, Dayton on NBCSN. I'm going to say Dayton wins that one. I don't feel super about it. 3 o'clock, Rice, Sam Houston State. Alabama, Alabama A&M. Our Lady at the Lord, A&M Corpus Christi. Yale Monroe, Southern Miss. Chattanooga, UAB. Texas, Arlington, Oral Roberts, and UC Davis, Sacramento State both canceled. 3:30, Jacksonville and Miami. 4 o'clock, number 2, Baylor against Kansas State. So Baylor returns from quarantine. I'm going to say that Baylor probably wins that game and probably covers too. Lee and East Tennessee State. Life Pacific and Cal State Bakersfield. NCAT Charlotte, Furman, Winthrop, Fairfield, Niagara. And by the way, now we're in the 4 o'clock window if I didn't mention that earlier. Campbell, NC State. Idaho State, Utah Valley, UMBC, Albany. 4:15 CBS, UCLA against number 20 Ohio State in the Crossroads Classic. That's a great game. I'm gonna say that UCLA probably wins the game. They're just more talented than Ohio State, although Ohio State is very talented as well. 4:30 NJIT against Temple, so NJIT making their season debut as an independent. Delaware State and LaSalle, Sanford, Kennesaw State. 5 o'clock, Flagler, North Florida, St. Peter's, Monmouth, Houston Baptist, Oklahoma. 5:30, Coppin State, Virginia Tech. 6 o'clock, Kansas Christian and UMKC, Carver, Stetson, UC Santa Barbara and Pepperdine, Buffalo, Syracuse, Eastern Washington, Northern Arizona, Fresno Pacific against Fresno State, Georgia Southern, FIU, Iona, Rider. Now we're in the 7 o'clock window. Middle Tennessee and Bellarmine, IUPUI and Purdue, Fort Wayne, Oakland, UIC. 8 o'clock, Crowley's Ridge, Tennessee State, McNeese, Louisiana, Cincinnati, Georgia, Northwestern State, Missouri State, Radford, Vanderbilt, Miami, Ohio, Bradley, Colorado State, St. Mary's, Arizona, Stanford, Texas State, Denver, 9 o'clock, Fox Sports 1, St. Joe's at number 7, Villanova. UCF at number 15, Florida State. Sagu, AIC, Dixie State. And last but not least, Cal Poly and Loyola Marymount. Portland, Seattle, and Long Beach State Cal Baptist, both canceled. Sunday, Vermont, UMass Lowell, and Florida A&M, Florida, both postponed. 12 o'clock, Fox Sports 1. Number 9, Creighton against UConn. So UConn making its return from COVID and its Big East debut. 1 o'clock, ESPN 2, number 13, Illinois against number 19, Rutgers. I'm going to say Illinois wins that game. Adam Miller could very well be the most talented player on the floor in that game. Defiance, Bowling Green, Jackson State, Iowa State. 2 o'clock, Oklahoma State at number 11, Texas. That's going to be an interesting game. Marist, Manhattan, Oral Roberts, Arkansas. Milwaukee, Green Bay, Rice State, Detroit, Mercy. Stony Brook against Binghamton. UMBC, Albany. Maine, Hartford. 2 o'clock, Fox Sports 1, Marquette, Xavier. So unbeaten Xavier against a Marquette team that has had some big wins already this year. And Xavier should be ranked. They're undefeated, but in a big conference, but not ranked. That's very weird to me. 3 o'clock, Freed, Hardman, North Alabama. Chicago State, Drake. Youngstown State, Northern Kentucky. Portland, Oregon. USC, Oregon State postponed. Weber State, Portland State, 4 o'clock. Alcorn State, number 6, Houston. So Houston making its return. Our Lady, UTSA. Champions Christian, Arkansas State. UNLV, Wyoming postponed. 4:30, Fox Sports 1, Providence, Seton Hall. That's going to be an interesting game. The Seton Hall follow up a big win with another big win. 5 o'clock, IUPUI, Purdue, Fort Wayne. Oakland, UIC. Cleveland against Robert Morris. 6 o'clock, Western Illinois, Tennessee, Martin. Benedictine, Arizona, UTEP. Air Force, Nevada. Delaware State, Georgia Tech. 6:30, Fox Sports 1, Georgetown, St. John. So it's a lot of Big East on Fox Sports 1 on Sunday. St. John's absolutely needs that game. They're probably going to be projected like 3.5 by me. I don't really know by heart. An interesting Big Ten game, 7 o'clock on the Big Ten Network. Number 4, Michigan State at Northwestern. That is a very interesting game. Michigan State should be able to win, though. Fort Lauderdale, Georgia Southern. St. Francis, Grand Canyon. 8:30, Fox Sports 1, St. Louis and Minnesota. That's an interesting game. I'm going to say St. Louis gets it done on the road, although Minnesota's been very, very solid this season so far. 10 o'clock, Pac-12 Network, Colorado, Washington. So an interesting conference game there. I'm going to say that Colorado gets it done on the road in that matchup. All right, so that's it for college football. And now we'll do NBA preseason from the weekend and look ahead to the weekend. Hornets over to Magic, 123-115. Pistons over to Wizards, 97-86. Rockets over to Spurs, 128-106. Grizz over to Hawks, 128-106. Wolves over to Mavericks, 129-127 in overtime. Warriors over to Kings, 113-109. And Jazz over to Clippers, 125-105. A lot of games tonight. 6 o'clock, 76ers Pacers. 7 o'clock, Heat Raptors. 7:30 Cavs Knicks. 8 o'clock ESPN 2 Nets Celtics. Bucks Pelicans. Bulls Thunder. 9 o'clock Trailblazers at the Nuggets. And at 10:30 ESPN Lakers Suns. So you got LeBron against Chris Paul. Saturday, the last day of preseason games. 7 o'clock Hornets Magic, Pistons Wizards. And 8 o'clock NBA TV the Hawks against the Grizzlies. So in terms of when to do college basketball season preview and predictions, we're going to do the big show on Monday night. And obviously, I'll get into detail of that when the time comes. Alrighty, now we'll recap the Thursday night football game from last night and look ahead and pick the rest of week number 15. The reason why I'm doing NFL first between NFL and college, because college has a lot of conference championship games, and so it's a bigger weekend in college football than it is in the NFL. So we're going to do the NFL first today. Great game last night. Chargers over the Raiders 30-27 in overtime. As the Chargers go to 5-9, the Raiders drop to 7-7. Justin Herbert, 22 of 32, 314 yards and 2 touchdowns. Marcus Mariota, 17 of 28, 266 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. My bad, 226 yards, not 266 yards. And then Derek Carr got injured. He injured his groin, so he might be done for the year. 3 for 5, 53 yards. They were driving, and then he probably should have ran it for a first down, and it was so obvious that he injured himself on that play. So, a lot of twists and turns in this game. One of the better games on Thursday Night Football all season. And the Chargers find a way to get it done, as Justin Herbert has had 2 good games in a row after a terrible performance against the Patriots a couple of weeks ago. All right, so for the first time all season, we have Saturday games to look forward to. So, to the picks we go. The first game is at 4:30 on Fox, and that is between the Broncos and the Bills. The Bills are favored by 6. The total is 49.5. I project Bills by 10.5. Total 49.5. So I'm taking the Bills minus the 6 against Denver. The Bills are a team that I was betting on a lot throughout the season, and then kind of just stopped betting on them because they become overvalued. But now they're undervalued here against the Denver team that's feast or famine. So give me the Bills at minus 6 against Denver. And then 8:15 on Fox, you have the Panthers and the Packers. My projection is Packers by 14.5, total 51.5. It's only 7.5, total of 52. I'm laying it with the Packers. This is probably the first time I'm going to bet on Green Bay all year. They really are in a nice spot here. Very undervalued against the Christian McCaffrey-less Carolina Panthers. So give me the Packers minus the 7.5 there. All right, Sunday. You got the Bears against the Vikings. My projections pick them, total of 48. Meanwhile, the Vikings are favored by 3.5 at home, and the total's 46.5. I'm taking the Bears plus the 3.5 at a very, very juice, minus 120. So I think they'll win the game? No, but 3 in the hook, I'll take it, even though I have to pay a lot of juice for it. Next up is Lions-Titans. My projections for this game are Tennessee by 9, total 54. Meanwhile, it's Tennessee 10.5, total 51.5. I like the over in this game a lot. Neither of these teams are good defensive teams, and these two teams have been over teams throughout the season. Detroit might get Kenny Golladay back. We'll see. Maybe DeAndre Swift's back as well. And obviously, Ryan Tannehill in that Tennessee offense is very, very good. So give me over 51.5 between Detroit and Tennessee. Next up, you have the Texans and the Colts. My projections are Colts by 12, total 49. Meanwhile, it's Colts by 7.5, total of 50.5. I'm laying it with the Colts at 7.5 at minus 102. That is really, really good. Although these two teams normally play close games, and the narrative plays the Texans, but I like the Colts. My numbers say Colts. Next up, Jacksonville against Baltimore. My projections are Baltimore by 12, total 47.5. Meanwhile, it's Baltimore 12.5, total 47.5. So my only choice is to take Jacksonville plus the 12.5 at minus 106. I would like for this line to go up a little bit in order to bet on the Jaguars. That's, spoiler alert, it's not in my Fat 5, but it's the only play I have to make for this game if I had to. Patriots-Dolphins. My projections are Dolphins 5, total 41.5. Meanwhile, it's Dolphins 1.5, total 41.5. I'm laying the 1.5 with the Dolphins at minus 106. I like how Tua Tagovailoa played last week, and I love how that defense played last week against the Chiefs. And I like that Tua rallied them back a little bit. So give me the Dolphins minus 1.5 at ridiculous valuable minus 106. 49ers-Cowboys. My projections are Cowboys 2.5, total 49.5. Meanwhile, it's Cowboys as a 3-point underdog, and the total is 45.5. I'm going to take the Cowboys plus 3 at minus 110, and I like them to win straight up at plus 138. I just don't think the 49ers are very good with Nick Mullins. They're still missing a lot of people. Dallas is missing Dak, but I like how they looked last week against Cincinnati. So give me the Cowboys plus the 3. I think they are trying to get back in that NFC East race. Saw how bad the Giants looked Washington might not have Alex Smith. So, give me the Cowboys +3 and then +138 to win the game straight up. And speaking of the Washington professional football team, they host the Seahawks. My projections are Seattle 5.5, total 48.5. Well, Seattle 6.5, total 44.5. My play for this one is going to be over 44.5. I have a big edge on the over. The case against it's obviously the fact that Haskins might play instead of Alex Smith. But maybe Haskins is not terrible and they score, let's say, 17 points. And Washington's defense is very, very good. And I know that even the Giants' defense gave Seattle trouble. And I think Washington's defense can give them trouble too. But it's still Russell Wilson. So, give me over 44.5, although I don't love that pick necessarily. Bucks Falcons. The Bucks are favored by 6. Totals 49.5. Meanwhile, my projections are Bucks 7. Total 50.5. I'm going to lay the 6 with the Bucks. I think that they found themselves a little bit against the Vikings, although they should not have covered that game. So give me the Bucks -6, although it's just a 1-point differential. And I have a 1-point differential on the total as well. 4 o'clock window now. Jets, Rams. My projection here is Rams 18, total 43. Meanwhile, it's Rams 17.5, total 43.5. I like the under better than I like the Rams. I think the Jets can conceivably hang around with Sam Darnold. I just like the under better. I believe in Aaron Donald. Maybe Sam Darnold turns the ball over in the red zone a little bit. So give me the under 43.5, although I do expect the Rams to win. Eagles, Cardinals. My projection for this game is Cardinals 6, total 48. Meanwhile, Cardinals favored by 6.5, totals 49.5. I'm not a big fan of the pick I'm about to make for this game, but I have to. And that is the under in this game. I think that Arizona is the case for it. All right, so I'm a 0.5 point with the line, and I am 1.5 points with the total. So I have to go with the total. The case for the under is that Arizona's defense carries its mojo from the Giant game to this game. Jalen Hurts turns the ball over a couple times and isn't the same player from last week. And then the Eagles' defense steps up like it did against the Saints. So there's your case for the under. Chiefs-Saints, great game. Potentially the return of Drew Brees. With Drew Brees, the Chiefs I project by 3. And without Drew Brees, I project 7.5. The total, 49.5. Meanwhile, right now, it's Chiefs by 3, total 51.5. So if it's Taysom Hill, I'm laying it with the Chiefs at -3. If it's Drew Brees, I'm taking the under. The under's 50.5. Or 51.5. It went down. So, it went up, my bad. So, 2 points of value on the under. Not my favorite pick, but I will certainly look at the Chiefs if Taysom Hill plays. And then Sunday Night Football, a game that should not have been flexed in the prime time with the league overreacting to see that the New York Football Giants are on a 4-game winning streak. But no, here they are. Cleveland at the Giants. No Barkley, no Odell, no Daniel Jones potentially. With Colt McCoy, I'd make this Browns by 12. With Daniel Jones, I'd make this Browns by 8. Total 47. And the line 6.5. It was 4.5, now it's up to 6.5. So they're probably expecting it to be Colt McCoy. So I'm going to lay the 6.5 with the Browns. It looks like it's going to be Colt McCoy. And then Jason Garrett tested positive for COVID, although he's not a good offensive coordinator. They're probably going to fire him at the end of the year. But Freddie Kitchens calling plays for the Giants this weekend because Jason Garrett tested positive. So give me the Browns -6.5 against the Giants. And then the Giants don't have James Bradbury either. That's a big loss for them. So give me the Browns. And I think that their offense can carry over some of its mojo. And then Monday Night Football, you have the Bengals hosting the Steelers. I project Steelers by 20, total of 44. Meanwhile, Steelers by 13, total of 40.5. I'm going to lay the 13 with the Steelers. I have a 7-point edge. The Bengals are garbage without Joe Burrow, and it proved it last week against the Cowboys. So give me the Steelers minus 13 against the Joe Burrow-less, hapless Cincinnati Bengals. All right, so I did my pick for Monday Night Football on today's show, but that's okay. We'll do it again on Monday. We'll just repeat it, I guess, because I normally don't do my Monday Night Football pick on Friday, but oh well. College football now. We will pick all the big games for the weekend. So, without further ado, here we go. There are 4 games on the slate today. First up is Nebraska against Rutgers at 4:30. My projections are Rutgers as a 3-point underdog, total 55.5. Meanwhile, Nebraska is favored by 5, and the total is 56.5. I'm going to take Rutgers plus the 5. I'm only a half-point off on the total, so I have no choice but to take Rutgers plus 5. Will they win straight up? Potentially. They are on the money line. It doesn't tell you the money line, but I think they can win straight up. So give me Rutgers plus 5. I don't know if they actually will win straight up, but I think it'll be close. Alrighty, next up you have UAB against Marshall in the Conference USA title game. My projection is Marshall by 1.5, total of 44. Meanwhile, Marshall's favored by 3.5, and the total is 42.5. I'm going to take UAB plus the 3.5 to keep that game very close. UAB is a solid team, so is Marshall. Although there's a bounce-back case we made for Marshall after losing to Rice. So give me UAB plus the points, although I do expect Marshall to win a super close game. Ball State and Buffalo in the MAC title game. My projection is Buffalo 2.5, total 63.5. Meanwhile, Buffalo's giving 12.5, total of 67.5. I'm taking Ball State plus the points. It was 13.5 yesterday. It went down to 12.5. I still like it a lot. And I do think that Ball State, that's a team that I've been wrong about all year, but I really think that they can hang around in this game tonight. And then last but not least, for tonight, Oregon USC, 8 o'clock on Fox. My projections, USC by 2, total of 60.5. Meanwhile, USC is favored by 3.5, and the total is 64.5. I'm taking the under here. Contrarian play. Neither of these defenses are very good, but that's where I have the most value. Saturday, Big Ten championship game, Northwestern against Ohio State. I project Ohio State 9, total 53. Meanwhile, it's 19.5, total 56.5. I'm taking Northwestern plus the 19.5 to keep that within the number. Texas A&M and Tennessee. My projection is A&M by 8, total 51.5. Meanwhile, they're favored by 13.5, totals 51.5. I'm taking Tennessee plus the 13.5 at minus 102. Big 12 title game. Oklahoma, Iowa State. My projection is Iowa State by 3, total 61.5. Meanwhile, Oklahoma is favored by 5.5, and the total is 58.5. I'm taking Iowa State plus 5.5 at minus 106, and they're plus 186 to win the game on the field. Florida State against Wake. That is not obviously a conference title game. My projections are Florida State by 7, total 62.5. Meanwhile, Wake is favored by 6.5 and the total 66.5. I'm taking Florida State plus 6.5 at minus 108, and I'm taking them to win straight up at plus 194 on the money line. Washington State, Utah obviously is not a conference title game. My projections, Utah 2.5 total 56. There's a 1:30 game. Meanwhile, Utah is favored by 10.5 and the total is 55.5. I'm taking Washington State plus a 10.5 to keep that close. 3 o'clock, Air Force Army. I project Army 4.5 total 41.5. Meanwhile, Air Force is giving 2.5 and the total is 37.5. I'm taking Army plus the 2.5 and plus 120 on the money line to win the game outright. So give me Army plus 2.5 and for them to win straight up. 3:30, Mississippi State hosting Missouri. My projection is Missouri 3 total 50. Meanwhile, it's a pick'em total 49.5. I'm taking Missouri in the pick'em with a slight juice at minus 115. Ole Miss LSU. My projections, LSU by 6, total 69.5. Meanwhile, Ole Miss is favored by 2.5 and the total 76.5. I'm taking LSU plus a 2.5 and plus 110 to win straight up. Or it's plus 112 now. And then I also like the under 76.5. But the podcast play is going to be LSU plus 2.5. 4 o'clock, ABC. The ACC title game. Clemson, Notre Dame. My projection is pick'em in a total of 58.5. That number would have been a lot different had Clemson won that game, obviously. Meanwhile, it's 10.5 total, 59.5. I'm taking Notre Dame plus the points. They are 3-1 to win straight up. I don't think they'll win straight up because I think this is a potential revenge spot for Clemson. So I'm taking Notre Dame plus the 10.5 at a juice minus 115. Minnesota, Wisconsin. I project Minnesota as a 2-point dog and a total of 50. Meanwhile, Minnesota is a 12.5-point dog and the total is 47.5. I'm taking Minnesota as a dog again, plus 12.5 at minus 106. They're plus 430 to win the game straight up. I don't think they'll win straight up this time, but I do think that they'll cover the 12.5 pretty easily at a very valuable number at minus 106. 4:30 you have the Mountain West title game between San Jose State and Boise State. My projection is Boise by 4, total 51.5. Meanwhile, it is Boise by 6.5 and the total is 56.5. I'm taking the under 56.5 at minus 112. Both of these teams' defenses have been pretty good this year, especially San Jose State's. But I do think Boise will win the game. 5:30 of Illinois, Penn State. I project Penn State 7, total 52.5. Meanwhile, it's Penn State 15.5, total 51.5. I'm taking Illinois plus the 15.5 to keep it within the number. 7 o'clock, you have Stanford against UCLA. My projection, Stanford by 1, total 57. Meanwhile, it's UCLA by 6.5, total 58.5. I like Stanford plus 6.5 at minus 105, and I think they'll win the game straight up at plus 210 on the money line. UCLA is not playing in a bowl game. Chip Kelly on the hot seat, potentially. That could be a distraction. So give me Stanford plus 6.5 at minus 105, and I like them to win straight up, too, at plus 210. 8 o'clock on CBS. Alabama, Florida, SEC title game. My projection, Alabama by 8, total 64.5. Meanwhile, Florida is a 17.5-point underdog, and the total is 73.5. My play for this game is going to be the under, 73.5. I like Florida too, but I like the under a little better. My projection from the actual spread to my projection's 9.5 from a line standpoint and from a total standpoint, it is a 9-point differential. But I feel better about the under than I do against Florida covering. I think Bama's defense has played very well of late, and I think they can get a couple stops. So give me under 73.5 for the SEC title game. The AAC title game, Tulsa against Cincinnati. My projection is Cincinnati 13, total 48.5. Meanwhile, it's Cincinnati 14.5, total 45.5. I'm taking the over. Cincinnati's defense is pretty good, but I like their offense a lot. They can score the football. Tulsa can score too. I think this game can be played into the 50s. So give me over 45.5 at minus 114. And last but not least, at 10:30, Pac-12 After Dark, Arizona State, Oregon State. My projection is Arizona State 5.5, total 57. Meanwhile, it's Arizona State 7.5, total 54.5. I'm taking the over here. Both of these teams are very good offensively. Arizona State went over the total by themselves last week. They won't do that again, but they're a very good offensive team. Oregon State can score too. So give me over 54.5, and I think you'll see some regression from Arizona State's defense this week. So I like the over in that game a ton. All right, so there you have it for college football picks for the weekend. And quickly, before I do my NBA small forward rankings, I'm going to do my final predictions for the college football playoff. I think your 1 seed will be Alabama. Your 2 seed will be Clemson. And then 3, you'll have Ohio State. And then number 4, you'll have 1 loss, Notre Dame. And I won't be shocked if Ohio State's 2 and Clemson's 3, because Clemson has a loss. And I think the committee is willing to give Ohio State a free pass because they've looked so dominant in a lot of their games, with the exception of that Indiana game. But A&M still has a shot. 2-loss Iowa State could potentially get in, but I don't see it. But you never know. And I wouldn't rule out USC either. That's another possibility for the college football playoff. But I'm going to say 1 Alabama, 2 Clemson, 3 Ohio State, 4 Notre Dame as my final predictions before Sunday. Now I'm going to do my NBA small forwards rankings before the season. All week we've been doing these rankings. I did point guards, shooting guards, now I'm doing small forwards. Next week will obviously be power forwards and centers, and obviously the big preview podcast as well. So without further ado, the small forward rankings for the 2020-21 season. 87, Rajon Tucker, Clippers. 86, Vlatko Konkar, Nuggets. 85, Sean McDermott, Grizzlies. 84, Caitlin Martin, Pacers. 83, Dylan Windler, Cavaliers. 82, Josh Jackson, Pistons. 81, Jordan Nwora, Bucks. 80, Timothy Luwawu, Nets. 79, Wesley Iwundu, Mavericks. 78, Caleb Martin, Hornets. 77, Cody Martin, Hornets. 76, Ignas Brazdeikis, Knicks. 75, KZ Okpala, Heat. 74, Zanon Musa, Pistons. 73, Jabari Parker, Kings. 72, DeAndre Bembry, Raptors. 71, Kevin Knox, Knicks. 70, Darius Miller, Thunder. 69, Stanley Johnson, Raptors. 68, Kayeda Bates-Diop, Spurs. 67, Chandler Hutchinson, Bulls. 66, Sadiq Bey, Pistons. 65, Isaac Okoro, Cavaliers. 64, Patrick Williams, Bulls. 63, Devin Vassell, Spurs. 62, Denny Avdija, Wizards. 61, James Ennis, Magic. 60, Solomon Hill, Hawks. 59, Trevor Ariza, Thunder. 58, Rodney McGruger, Pistons. 57, Nicholas Batum, Rockets, or Clippers, my bad. 57, Ben Lackamore, Rockets. 55, Etuan Moore, Suns. 54, Glenn Robinson, the Kings. 53, Jake Layman, Timberwolves. 52, Damian Lee, Warriors. 51, Tony Snell, Hawks. 50, Kent Bazemore, Warriors. 49, Reggie Bullock, Knicks. 48, Josh Okogie, Timberwolves. 47, Justice Winslow, Grizzlies. 46, Semi Ojeleye, Celtics. 45, Cam Reddish, Hawks. 44, Markieff Morris, Lakers. 43, Sviatoslav Mihailuk, Pistons. 42, Troy Brown, Wizards. 41, Rodney Hood, Blazers. 40, Jay Crowder, Suns. 39, Torrey Craig, Bucks. 38, Kyle Anderson, Grizzlies. 37, Derek Jones Jr., Blazers. 36, Keldon Johnson, Spurs. 35, Cameron Johnson, Suns. 34, Dorian Finney-Smith, Mavericks. 33, Danielle House, Rockets. 32, Terrence Ferguson, 76ers. 31, Justin Holiday, Pacers. 30, Dwayne Bacon, Magic. 29, C.D. Osman, Cavaliers. 28, Taurean Prince, Nets. 27, Josh Hart, Pelicans. 26, Marcus Morris, Clippers. 25, Otto Porter Jr., Bulls. 24, DeAndre Hunter, Hawks. 23, Matthias Thybulle, 76ers. 22, Mikal Bridges, Suns. 21, Andre Iguodala, Heat. 20, TJ Warren, Pacers. 19, Andrew Wiggins, Warriors. 18, OG Anunoby, Raptors. 17, Joe Harris, Nets. 16, Joe Ingles, Jazz. 15, Danny Green, 76ers. 14, Will Barton, Nuggets. 13, Harrison Barnes, Kings. 12, Michael Porter Jr., Nuggets. 11, Bojan Bogdanovic, Jazz. 10, Gordon Hayward, Hornets. 9, Robert Covington, Blazers. 8, Brandon Ingram, Pelicans. 7, Jaylen Brown, Celtics. 6, Chris Middleton, Bucks. 5, Jimmy Butler, Heat. 4, Kevin Durant, Nets. 3, Kawhi Leonard, Clippers. 2, Luka Doncic, Mavericks. And number 1, if there wasn't any doubt, LeBron James, Los Angeles Lakers, the 4-time NBA champion, 4-time NBA MVP. He's still the best player in the world until further notice, and he proved that yet again in the playoffs. I think he's going to still be motivated. He's hearing all this Luka Doncic is the best player in basketball talk, and Giannis. He's like, shut up. I'm still LeBron James. And he proved everybody that last year by going out and winning the title. And I think that he's going to be a man on a mission again as the Lakers are reloaded and ready to go for the 2020-2021 NBA season. Quickly, before I do Fab 5 and Best Bet, I wanted to touch on the latest with the NHL. A lot of crazy rumors coming out last night from TSN's Pierre LeBrun, who has done a great job of doing a bunch of reporting for the situation. But the latest is that there's the possibility of Canadian NHL teams playing in the United States all season, dropping the All-Canadian division idea. So they're doing that because there's rumors that Canada still won't open their borders. So they're thinking about moving all the Canadian teams to the United States. I think that is a clever idea if Canada doesn't open their borders. But I know it's unfortunate for the Canadian team fans, although there's no fans in the stands. But it's just unfortunate in a way that all their games have to be played in the United States, especially for the players, because they're not going to be with their families unless their families come with them. So they're probably going to put some of the Canadian teams in other stadiums throughout the season. Like, the Maple Leafs will probably play in Buffalo. The Senators and the Habs maybe in Boston. Maybe they'll put somebody in Pittsburgh. Maybe they'll put the Winnipeg Jets in Minnesota. Maybe they'll transform some of these NBA arenas into hockey arenas. So that's that possibility as well. Maybe the Canucks play at the Moda Center and they turn the Moda Center into a hockey arena or something like that. Maybe Seattle still has that stadium where the maybe they could put the Canucks or the Flames, or probably more likely the Canucks, in the building where the Seattle Storm play, the WNBA team. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they do with that. And they're still trying to negotiate, and they're still trying for that January 13th start date. And, and then the other hockey news I want to touch on is that Henrik Lundqvist, the new goalie of the Washington Capitals, formerly of the New York Rangers, will not play this season due to a heart condition. Thoughts and prayers out to Henrik Lundqvist. In my opinion, the best Rangers goaltender of all time. Him on another team would be really weird. It's kind of like it would be reminiscent of 5 or 6 years ago when Martin Brodeur was playing on the Blues, which was very, very awkward. So that would have been weird if he was playing on Washington, but hoping he gets well soon and we possibly see him on the ice in 21-22 unless he winds up retiring. All right, now my Fab 5 and Best Bet. We'll start with the Fab 5, and we'll start in college football. Without further ado, here we go. All the games I'm picking are Saturday games. The First one, Army plus 2.5 against Air Force. I just think that Army's going to get up for it. They're home. They have fans in the stands. So I think that Army will go out and win this game and try to finish on a high note. Next up, Minnesota plus 12.5. I'm jumping back on the Minnesota train again. They're not my money line pick of the week this week, but I'm jumping them from against the spread. Next up, Stanford plus 6.5 against UCLA. They're not my money line pick of the week, but I just think that game is a lot closer than the experts think. And I do think they'll win, but they're not my money line pick of the week. And I made the case earlier that UCLA, distractions, Chip Kelly might be leaving. Arizona State, Oregon State over 54.5. I made the case earlier. Oregon State's defense stinks, and both these teams have pretty solid offenses. And then last but not least, Iowa State plus 5.5 against Oklahoma, and that is also my money line pick of the week at plus 186. Iowa State beat them earlier in the year, so there's that Oklahoma revenge possibility, but I love this Iowa State team. They're riding high right now. Oklahoma's been a little vulnerable. I didn't like what I saw against Baylor a few weeks ago, so give me Iowa State plus 5.5, and I like them to win straight up at plus 186 on the money line. Maybe it's an overreaction to that West Virginia beatdown as well, but Iowa State's looking like the best team in the Big 12 right now. And now the NFL Fab 5 and Moneyline Pick of the Week. So Fab 5, it's all Sunday games. Bills and Packers are just podcast plays because they're Saturday games. But all my picks this week are Sunday and Monday games. Detroit, Tennessee over 51.5. I made that case earlier. Both of these teams have good offenses and their defenses stink. Kenny Galladay might be back. DeAndre Swift might be back. Tennessee's offense looked okay against the Jaguars. Detroit's defense is pretty bad too. Tennessee's defense stinks, so I think both these teams will have field days. I won't be shocked if this is into the 60s. Colts minus 7.5 against the Texans. I can't believe that it's minus 102 as well. I know everybody thinks this is going to be close because of Watson and they're the Texans, and Texans and Colts always play close games. But I like how this Colts team's playing right now. Phillip Rivers is playing well. Darius Leonard back for that defense. And I think that the Texans' offensive line stinks. Dolphins minus 1.5 against the Patriots. So this is my second time taking the Dolphins in the Fab 5 this year. The other one proved to be a mistake because Drew Lock wound up playing in that Broncos game. But I believe in them more this time. Their defense is playing lights out. Cam Newton is not. So give me the Dolphins minus 1.5 against New England. So that is 1, 2, 3. Browns minus 6.5 against the Giants. No Daniel Jones. Colt McCoy's playing. I just don't like how this week has gone for the Giants. They have some COVID issues. James Bradbury is on the COVID list. Their defense will miss him. I think Baker might have a field goal against the Giants. So, I wouldn't rule out the over in this game either. I talked about that. I should have mentioned that earlier, but I do love the Browns minus 6.5 against the Giants. Steelers minus 13 against the Bengals. We talked about that earlier. Yes, it's the Monday night game, but it's part of the Fab 5. Never I say Monday night for Monday night, but we'll recap it again on Monday. But so yeah, Steelers minus 13. No Joe Burrow. They're bad. They're the second or third worst team in the league without Joe Burrow. And last but not least, my moneyline pick of the week, the Dallas Cowboys at plus 138. I consider the Bears, but I don't think they're going to win the game straight up. But moneyline pick of the week, the Cowboys plus 138 against the 49ers. 49ers still have a boatload of injuries. Deebo Samuel out for the year. And then, obviously, Garoppolo, Bosa, Kittle, all out. No Dak either. No Zach Martin. That's a problem. But San Francisco can be as bad as Cincinnati and the Jets and the Giants sometimes. So I think that this could be potentially one of those weeks. And the Cowboy defense has actually improved a little bit since earlier in the year. But granted, their opponents are a lot weaker. And the Cowboys are playing for a division title. They know that Alex Smith is not healthy. Daniel Jones is not healthy. The Eagles just benched Carson Wentz. So this is a golden opportunity for the Dallas Cowboys. So they're my money line pick of the week at plus 138 against the 49ers. And I do project them as a favorite of 2.5 points. And last but not least, my best bet of the day, brought to you by FanDuel. I'm going to go to college basketball again. On a roll with these college basketball picks. And that pick for tonight will be Santa Clara minus 7.5 against San Jose State. I strongly considered Ball State, but Buffalo has just been kicking ass lately. And I've been kicking ass with betting on college basketball teams that are undervalued favorites with the valuable juice line. And this is not juiced. It is a valuable minus 105. So I'm going to take Santa Clara minus the 7.5 against San Jose State at minus 105 as my best bet of the day. So that's it for the show today. I'll be back on Monday recapping all the football from college to the NFL. We'll look at the final college football playoff standings. We'll look at some bowl matchups, which are going to be announced on Sunday. And the Bulls actually are going to start on Monday, if I'm not mistaken. So we might have bowl games to pick on Monday. So that is going to be a lot of fun. No, by the way, something I forgot to mention is that the Sun Belt Conference Championship game got canceled due to COVID issues with Coastal Carolina. And yes, it's starting on Mondays, all the bowl games, with the Myrtle Beach Bowl at Appalachian State, North Texas. We'll obviously pick that on Monday's podcast. NBA preseason will be wrapped up by then. College basketball as well. Any other news related to sports, so like hockey or MLB free agency, I'll have it for you on the podcast as well. Hope you guys have a brilliant weekend, everyone.